Hello, fellow stars. This is Astrophel, and welcome to my very first Podfic. For the first one, I've chosen a story called What You Stand For by SonnieCelanna. Please forgive me if I've pronounced your name wrong. The summary is as follows. By dumb luck, Izuku has found himself being asked to give the student pledge at the sports festival, and naturally, he's extremely nervous in front of a crowd. Unfortunately for Yue, when Izuku is nervous, his mind starts running, and today, a few disturbing realizations hit, and he ends up finding confidence to speak about one thing. My name is Izuku Midoriya, and I am against the sports festival. This story is a one-shot, so let's get started. Stand up proud and tell the world who you are and what you stand for. Izuku took a deep breath as he walked up onto the podium for the sports festival stage to where Midnight was standing, smirking at him as she held out a microphone. His legs shook, his face was pale, and frankly, he looked like he was made of jello as he turned to face the crowd of students before him and the crowd of spectators above. Unfortunately, imagining them in their underwear would not help due to the fact that Izuku was bi and Yue had a weird propensity for attracting cute students, and the spectators were too far away for the trick to work on them anyways. The spectators who had come to watch the children end up beating the shit out of each other with superpowers in a stupid, questionable festival that was a terrible idea, even if it was cool as hell to watch as a kid. Okay, so maybe Izuku had mixed feelings about the sports festival. But in his defense, he hadn't been the one on the stage or required to take part before. Which, in hindsight, wasn't this kind of fucked up to require his participation in, even if he was a hero student? And based on the fact that so many of the Gen Ed students didn't want to be here, Izuku frowned as he added another tick to his mental checklist of the ways Yue was proving to not live up to its reputation. Stand up proud and tell the world who you are and what you stand for. Izuku took a deep, shuddering breath, nerves racking him as he pulled the microphone to his mouth. Yet he didn't speak, even as everyone went quiet and waited patiently, aside from Bakugo, who was seething in the crowd. This was meant to be his moment after all, but after his stunt with the gauntlets and hero training that almost killed Izuku, it had been taken from him as punishment. That was it. He lost his right to be a public speaker, and it was given to his socially awkward victim who didn't want to do it in the first place. What the fuck, Yue? You okay, kid? Midnight asked, a little concerned from his side, and he turned to see her frowning before turning back to see everyone staring up at him confused as he was silent, as he had had this epiphany. He took another deep breath. Stand up and tell the world who you are and what you stand for. All right, All Might. I'll follow your advice. Someone told me, he spoke up before pausing and cursing his stutter. He stayed quiet as he composed himself before something seemed to click. His eyes seemed to grow a little brighter. To a certain frog girl in the crowd, she recognized it as the look that came on his face the second she ended up being on the other side of a villain. His hero look, for a lack of a better term. Someone told me the best way to approach this is just stand up. Say who I am and what I'm standing here for, he said, fibbing ever so slightly about the context as he began to pace back and forth, his voice taking on a slightly more firm tone. And honestly, I wasn't sure what to say for a moment. I've barely started UA. Our teacher barely teaches us anything other than being a walking example of what not to be like. He did his best to ignore how many students' eyes went wide and how Midnight started sputtering in shock beside him at what he had just said, pressing on even as in the back of his mind he subconsciously started a countdown to doom for saying that. And is so lazy he'd rather threaten expulsion so he can sleep instead of doing his job. If you're that tired, quit one of your jobs. The fact Present Mike can handle 3 and still do a decent job is testament to the fact that you have no excuse for your behavior. Beyond UA's abysmal standards, like allowing this stupid, immoral, unethical festival. Now that, if jaws weren't dropped before, really did it this time. Hell, One or two skeleton mutations in the crowd literally felt their jaws fall off at both what was said and the sheer disbelieving anger in the boy's tone as he said it. And despite his anxiety, he dared to look up at the crowd. This time, he didn't see civilians looking back at him, meek and shy, that he wanted to impress. He saw people who bought tickets to watch him and his friends run around like headless chickens, blasting each other with all kinds of potentially deadly, barely trained powers for their own amusement. So his anger only increased, strengthening his resolve to continue. He wasn't sure why his mic hadn't been cut yet, but frankly, while he was on this train, he didn't care. You all paid to watch children fight each other with powers we're barely trained with. The quirk I have destroys my body. One of my classmates is a walking blizzard. Another has fucking acid. Ida! In the crowd, a tall blue-haired teen fainted in disbelief as a shorter, pudgier brunette girl yelped, barely catching him in her arms as he was overwhelmed by his friend's language. Sorry for swearing if you're watching this, Mom, but this? No. This is objectively, morally, 100% wrong and disgusting. He sighed as he dropped the mic for a moment before his free hand curled into a fist and he ended up pointing to the teacher's booth. I was required to come here because of the hero course, which, not even touching on the fact that, hey, maybe not every hero wants to be a spotlight hero and putting them all over TV is a stupid idea. Even if you can argue that we need to do this for training, and good luck convincing me of that, since I don't see a sports festival for actual trained pro heroes like would make sense, did anyone else in the other courses get a choice? A few of the Gen Ed students blinked, then looked away, shuffling their feet and grumbling as they tried not to make themselves too noticeable. Because if they didn't, that's even more messed up. And if they did, what does that say about UA? That I'm questioning if they'd throw literally any student they have into this festival, even if it was against their will? Izuku sighed as he turned back to the students for a moment, and the spectators. I don't even think I could say I'd be surprised if UA did. I really did think this was the best school, but all I've seen so far is the quirkest homeroom teacher who expels people on his own arbitrary decisions, completely defeating the point of a selection process. A school that condones attempted murder and punishes the victim because, oh yeah, I don't even want to be standing here doing this in the first place and wasn't meant to. A school that had 2 break-ins back to back, and a school which is making us do this stupid competition. A deep, harsh breath escaped Izuku before he looked up at the crowd. And I honestly can't tell what's more screwed up, that UA makes us do this, or that so many of you buy tickets, watch this, and don't have a problem with it. With a small flourish and almost defeated laugh, he turned away and put a hand to his face with a light groan of dismay. Or maybe it's the heroes in general. That's what this whole sports festival boils down to, isn't it? Learn how to compete with your friends because you're all competing. You're all just in one big popularity contest. Because it's not like you're in an occupation where people's lives are frequently at stake or anything. A more genuine growl escaped his throat at that as the realization struck true as he said it. His brain was wandering a little. It was flying down a tangent, but not one unprepared. Not one Izuku had never thought about before, just one that, until now, Izuku had always shoved aside. Now, though, it was the crux of his whole situation. Izuku knew that himself, plus a microphone, plus a crowd would usually lead to stage fright. Add on seriously unhealthy doses of baggage and some fucked up realizations. You know what? I'll say it right now. Hero rankings are one of the worst things we as a society have invented since quirks came into play. I don't give a damn how popular Mirako is or how many plushies Endeavor sells. The only factors that matter are how many villains are stopped, how many lives are saved, and how many people you avoid hurting along the way. Anything else has no place with anyone who considers themselves a real hero. Because do you know what 2 pro heroes who are in it for the competition are? A danger to everyone else who needs someone actually dedicated to saving them. With one last sweeping gaze of some of the heroes in the crowd, he sighed. I really, really like heroics. I love heroes. But do you know what I call two pros who care more about their reputation than how best to help people? I don't know either, because I wouldn't call them heroes. Heroes are meant to help others and help each other to help others. Competing is the worst thing someone in their position could do. He put the mic back on the stand and backed up, but he spoke just loud enough to be picked up again. And the sports festival, on top of its countless moral failings, is at the end of the day nothing more than a continuation of this messed up society we have created. I love All Might, and I can't deny he did what he needed to do for his time, but even I have to acknowledge you only saved society from collapsing. You didn't fix it. You used a bandage for a wound that needs to be stitched up. So like someone told me to say, one final pause to steel himself for what came next. This is who I am, Izuku Midoriya, and what I stand for is heroics, real heroics, and for the people who won't be stood up for, including the people other heroes or hero schools mistreat, which is why I also need to announce what I stand against. I stand against the sports festival. I stand against the way society is treating all of us at this point, and if this is really how things will continue, I will do what's right and stand against UA, so as you can guess, I'm not participating. With that said, he turned and walked down the stage steps, heading for the changing room again, ignoring the looks as best he could, starting to feel his fears and anxiety finally seeping back. Midoriya! A feminine voice called in shock, and he turned to see Midnight chasing him down. With a sigh, he spoke up one last time while he still had the confidence, turning his eyes to the microphone she had on her collar to get the final words in. Next time you all want to debate about quirk usage, heroics entry age, and what constitutes a villain versus a criminal, I suggest you all remember you're the ones who all support children fighting for sport, for your entertainment. All right, fellow stars. That was, wow. Maybe next time I should read these before I start recording. Didn't expect the Aizawa bashing. Had no idea where this fic was going to go. But hey, go Izuku. Stand up for what you believe in. And kudos to the writer, because that was a whirlwind, a very emotional whirlwind. Anyways, I hope you all enjoy, and if there's any suggestions for the next fic I should read, go ahead and drop it in the comments. I'm just going to be doing a few one-shots for now, just to kind of get in the groove. I don't even know how or if I'm going to edit this yet, but, we'll figure it out. Anyways, thanks for listening. Like, comment, maybe subscribe. I'll see you next time.